I feel alive. I know inside that you would take it all away. I know the truth. I see through the lies, and I won't let you win again.
Guys, welcome to the second episode of the Faithful Chat podcast. I'm so grateful for all the love and support we received on the first episode. I'm absolutely blown away. And we have an equally awesome guest today. His name is Dayne Smith. For those of you that have been following our journey, we've just finished with our 1,000 Beyond initiative, in which we ran 10 kilometers every day for 100 days. And I did it with Dayne. And we did it for an awesome organization, which you're going to hear more about today, hopefully. And so Dayne, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Let's just start off with Teach Beyond, right? So just give those that don't know, just give those listening some context towards who Teach Beyond is as a charity and the role that you play within the organization.
Cool, yeah. So Teach Beyond is a global organization. We are in 66 different countries around the world, and each country's got its niche. So it does something different, like has a theological seminary or a school, or helps different schools. We've just started a great school in the Congo called Kinshasa Academy, and that's been going for some time now, but it's been awesome. But the whole heart behind Teach Beyond is transformational education. So we believe in education and the importance of education, but we believe in transforming teachers and transforming students through the gospel. We're a Christian organization, and so we love the Lord, and we've got a real heart for education. We started our organization in 2019, so we've only been going for a couple of years now. But what we do is we receive volunteer teachers into Africa, and we send out volunteer teachers out of Africa, and we help with schools in the area as well.
Awesome. And then, like you said, I love the emphasis that Teach Beyond puts on Jesus and God, and obviously it's so important, especially within the youth and whatever. It's just such an awesome organization, and it's been a privilege to try and help raise funds for them. So what has been your highlight so far? I'm sure you've made a ton of highlights. I know when we were running, you went to a school and you spoke and you ran on the field with a few kids, but what has been your highlight so far over your 4 or 5 years at Teach Beyond?
There's been so many, from helping refugee students and children to helping teachers at community centers and training teachers. But I think one of my big highlights has been we had an African conference last year in Africa, where we got a whole bunch of Teach Beyond members from all over the world. They came into South Africa, and we were in Harties, or in a place called close to Harties, Glenburn Lodge. And it was so cool to introduce so many people to South Africa and to Africa. And we ran a children's ministry there for all the missionary kids. And I think that's probably one of my highlights is to show people around the world how diverse South Africa is and how much we have to offer as well.
We actually go back. So not a lot of people know this, but you were actually my youth pastor. That's how I first met you. And then there was a big gap in between how I met you now, and our relationship has formed over the 1,000 Beyond initiative. But just explain to everyone who doesn't know, what is the story behind 1,000 Beyond, and how it's obviously your brainchild, and it's an idea and an initiative that you started with Teach Beyond to try and impact underprivileged children by providing them educational facilities. But how did it start? Just give some context.
So because we're such a new organization, we need to raise funds for our organization so that we can help teachers and students. And last year, just as we, going through Instagram, I saw this guy Chad, I don't know, it was you. And I saw day 56, day 57. And I was so intrigued. I'm like, what is day 56? What is day 57? What is he doing? And then I started following your journey, and I saw that you're running 42 kilometers a day for 100 days. And I thought, geez, this is awesome. And so then I continued following the journey, until you finished. And I was so inspired. And I was thinking already way back when you're in day 50, what can I do to raise money for for this organization. And I had a bunch of ideas, and I hated running. I'm still not the biggest fan, but we'll get there. And I thought, geez, how does this guy run so much every single day? You know, I'd love to do something to raise money for the education of underprivileged children. And so then that's, you know, when I phoned you up and I said, let's go for breakfast, and you agreed, and we went for breakfast. And I had this idea just before we went for breakfast in the shower that I'd love to run 10 kilometers a day for 100 days, because I knew I could probably do it, even though I don't like running. And if people wanted to join us, then it's not so intimidating, because I felt like joining you, but the thought of 42 kilometers was daunting. So I didn't do that.
It scares me as well.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
So the other day I went to a bra at Louisa's house, my girlfriend, and there was a runner there who was preparing for 2 Oceans, and she knew about our initiative, which was awesome.
Cool.
And she said to me, has Dayne run Comrades? Has Dayne done 2 Oceans? And I said, I almost giggled in my mind, because people expect you to be this runner.
Yeah.
You've ran 10 kilometers every single day for 100 days. That's a massive achievement. Anyone who runs knows that it's not a small feat.
Yeah.
But just give some context into what did your preparation look like getting ready for 1,000 Beyond, and were you a runner before this journey?
No, not at all. I didn't like running. The Bible is clear. It says, why run when nobody chases you? And so I did not like running at all. I love not cycling, road cycling. I love mountain biking. So that's probably my sport, I would say. And so my preparation was pretty hard. First run I did with you was at Red Clay. And we did a bit of a 5K just to see what my heart rate looked like, what my time looked like, and you gave me some tips. And then literally every day in December, from the 1st of December, 3 kilometers, 3.5 kilometers, 4 kilometers, every day you just increase a little bit.
Yeah.
And I trained really hard until I got to a 10 before the end of December. I mean, in the middle of that, the birth of my child, the 10th of December, the birth of my second child happened as well. So that was quite interesting. And I still remember doing stretches in the hospital while my wife was in labor so that I could run the next day.
And that, to me, that was like the craziest thing about all of this. You're going to hear, those listening, you're going to hear so much more about Dayne's obstacles and what he had to overcome through this process. But for those that don't know, when did the birth of your second child happen?
10th of December, yeah.
10th of December. So that was
correct.
20 days before our first run.
Yeah.
That is incredible. I don't know anyone except you who would have accepted such a monumental challenge so close to the birth of his child. And it's awesome to see how you didn't use that as an excuse, but you used it as a form of motivation. And it's incredible for me to just, because so many people are like, oh, my schedule's too busy.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, clearly not. I've seen someone who's done it all. He works multiple jobs. It's just, it's mind-boggling to me.
It was your fault, actually, because for those listening, I'm going to Albania next. So next week, this time, I'll be in Albania for Teach Beyond. So I can't really share what we'll be doing there, but we'll be in Albania. And so Chad said to me, why don't we start on the 1st of January? Let's just start, because by the time we're done, you can go on your trip and you don't have to worry about running, which was great advice. Like, I'm really grateful to that. But I prepared to only start running in March in my mind. So like, we'd only kind of be on our 30th or 40th day now. But you're like, no, Dayne, let's just start on the 1st of Jan. So then I'm like, okay. But it was funny because then you were like, oh, what did I just say? I remember that. You're like, oh no, we're going to start this on the 1st of Jan. Yeah.
And I'm so happy you said that, because this is what I'm going to get into in my next question.
Okay.
We're going to speak about these running shoes. But when we started, our plan wasn't to start on the 1st of January. No. Initially, it wasn't. We thought we're going to wait a bit. We're going to see how the training goes, and then we'll see when you fit enough. And then I obviously said to you, know what, when I was training for my marathons, I realized that the hard part isn't the training. It's when it comes to these challenges, it's the challenge itself. And you don't want to put your best kilometers in your training when you have so much ahead of you.
Yeah.
And when you heard that, you instantly took to this idea of starting on the 1st of January.
Yeah, for sure.
So much so that when you started, you didn't even have proper running shoes.
Nope. I had my shoes had holes on either side of my toes. It was so funny. So then I remember you said, well, I've got some shoes to lend you. And
So, you mentioned our first run at Red Clay. That was the first time I actually ran with you.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
So how the 1,000 Beyond started, Dayne contacted me about a week or 2 weeks after I finished my last marathon.
Yeah.
And then you said, can I take you for breakfast?
Yeah.
And I've told this joke a million times, but I never say no to a free breakfast. And I thought you were just going to, I don't know what you wanted to talk to me about. I thought maybe because you're my youth pastor, there was going to be that involved. But then you told me about this organization that you work for and this initiative, and I was just blown away.
Yeah.
So when you started, we ran at Red Flag, and I looked at you and I saw you in these torn up shoes, and I thought, maybe this guy is as crazy as I because I did something similar. So when I started my marathons, I didn't have proper running shoes. I had a pair of shoes that I was training in, and they had over 2,000 kilometers in them. And if it was not for the awesome uncle that I have who bought me these shoes in front of us here, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So I just use that as a form of motivation and to inspire others to not wait on your goals. Even with this podcast, I don't have cameras. I don't have mics. It's all come together through God's grace. And it's just, it's been awesome. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
And then, you mentioned that you started off in my running shoes. So Dayne actually started off in the running shoes that I finished my last marathon in. That had over 2,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
But then not soon after, someone did donate your shoes.
Correct,
so just give some context to that.
Yeah. So we've got an African regional director. Her name's Tammy. So she looks after, I'm a national director. Sorry about that. I'm a national director in South Africa. So we've got national directors all over Africa. And her and her husband donated 10,000 Rand towards the cause. They said, of that 10,000 Rand, we want you to buy yourself whatever pair of running shoes you'd like. And that was quite fun because Chad took me to the Sweatbox. And we went sweatshop. And we went and we kind of tried on a couple of shoes, and he watched me run, and my legs were so tired. I'm like, oh, this guy's going to think I'm an idiot because I can't even, my knees were so sore on that day, and I'm trying to run in these shoes. And then I remember there was one orangey pair and one blue pair, and the one was a little bit more expensive than the other. And Chad and I looked at each other. I'm like, no, I really want this nice looking pair. Yeah. If I'm going to spend this much money, let me, make it worthwhile. And I'm still running in them today. Running shoes I cannot stress enough how a good pair of running shoes really just makes a huge difference.
The game, yeah.
And it's not part of our questions, but halfway through, there was another organization that donated a pair of shoes to me, and we ran in them. We did a trail run in them. Yeah. Worst decision. If you're going to do something this crazy, don't change your shoes. Run.
And they were those minimalist shoes that have zero protection. And
nothing.
Dayne said to me, I want to go for a run in these. So I thought, okay, let's see how it goes. And then he decided to run, for those of you that know, Tubber Trails. And I was like, this man, he's going to break it. So I can see it coming.
Yeah, I probably nearly did. Oh, and I couldn't walk for the next 2 days after. And I started to run. Yeah. So that was quite funny.
And I'm so happy you mentioned the sweatshop, because there was a man at the sweatshop a very special human. His name's Victor. And I remember I went to, for those of you that need a running shoe store.
Yeah, they're good.
They're the best in the game, honestly.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was telling him, he was fitting me for my shoes, these shoes in front of us here that mean so much to me. And he was saying, oh, so what are you training for? And I told him, no, I'm running 100 marathons. And I'll never forget the way he looked at me this kid has no idea. And then 6 months later, we went back to the sweatshop to buy you your shoes. And it was just incredible. It was this full circle moment. And I saw Victor there, and I told him, what? I did actually make sure of my words, and it was just the best feeling in the world.
Yeah.
So all credit to God for that one.
Yeah.
And then you've obviously mentioned the battles you faced early on. Or the battles you faced, with running in minimalist shoes.
Yeah, bad idea. Yeah.
There was one battle that you faced very early on.
Yeah.
And I must be honest, Dayne, I'm not someone who doubts. I try to think of myself as an optimist.
Yeah.
But when I heard the severity of what you had and the injury you had, I really doubted a little bit whether we were going to make true of this goal.
Yeah.
So just give some context to that.
Yeah, so from day 4, I think Chad and I went running, and I said to him, my calves are really sore. But because my calves are sore, my knee also started to really, really hurt, my left knee. I thought, no, this can't be something that we need to worry about, or whatever the case is. I'll get home and I'll stretch. And the next day I could barely walk on my leg. And the day after that was day 6. I couldn't even stand. And I remember I was so emotional because I'd really put my heart behind this initiative. And, I've got a newborn baby, and I can't even stand and hold my newborn baby because I'm in so much pain. And I'm frustrated because, of this initiative. And I've messaged Chad, and Chad said, don't worry, Dayne, we'll organize a wheelchair. I'll push you in a wheelchair if we have to. And I was so determined to finish, but I threw my phone, and I teared up because I really worked hard, on this goal and to finish. And half an hour later, I picked up my phone, and on my phone were two messages. One from a doctor, Dr. Janine Joseph from Mondial Center for Integrative Medicine. And she said, Dayne, I'll do dry needling and I'll treat your knee until you are 100% better. So she's treated me probably 7 or 8 times, and she's never charged me.
What exactly was the injury, though? It was just...
Yeah. Well, I was getting there.
Sorry, Dayne. I'm a bit eager here.
That's okay. I'll tell you now. So there was the message from her, and then the second message was from Natasha. She's a reflexologist that does massages, especially on sports injuries, and she struggles with her eyesight. Chad actually introduced me to her, and she's absolutely amazing. I'll definitely recommend her services. So anyway, when I went to the doctor, it turned out that I damaged my meniscus and I tore a part of my calf muscle. That's what the x-rays had said anyway. And so that was a bit hectic. And this is where Chad was thinking, how is Dayne ever going to finish this? While I was at the doctor, there was a guy from the gym company, the owner of the gym company in Winchester Hills, and he said, you can use facilities at my gym so that you don't put as much strain on your leg until you're finished. And I did that for about 12 days, I think. I used the gym to do my 10 kilometers without putting strain on the knee. And, day 20, I had to pretty much teach myself how to run again. So, very, very badly damaged knee, the meniscus in my knee. And then I didn't know there was something in the knee called a meniscus. And then a torn calf muscle on day 6 of this journey. Yeah.
Crazy. And I'm so happy you mentioned Natasha. So she has a sight. Her sight is impaired, and she's a reflexologist. And I remember I had a very similar story to Dayne when I was running my marathons, because on day 3 I had my feet were just in pain like I've never felt before. And obviously that marathon, it took me 11.5 hours to finish on day 3.
Crazy. Yeah.
But sometimes I feel like, so Natasha helped me so much through recovering and whatnot, and she was just a godsend, and she never once charged me. So
yeah, she's amazing. Yeah.
She's just a godsend. And sometimes I feel like when we're in these moments in life, especially when we're trying to accomplish something so big and something of magnitude, and we feel like our heart's in the right place, and then something happens early on, I feel like a lot of people turn to God and say, why are you doing this to me? And it was only after I had finished and after I had overcome the struggle that I realized, were it not for that day that took me 11.5 hours, that was like the highlight of my marathons, because that day I'll never forget. And it was like a highlight for me because it was a tool that I use now to motivate others.
Yeah.
And when things get hard in my life, I remind myself of that day and how God sometimes does give you challenges, not to put you down, but to build you up. Yeah. And it's incredible. Like,
yeah. I was telling our national director that needed to happen to me, because you can become so prideful doing something like this. You can make it all about yourself. But it was God reminding me that I'm doing this for you, nobody else. And so I think God doesn't injure us because that's not his nature, but he allows these things to happen so that we can lean on him more, for sure. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And there was a friend that challenged Chad, saying that he wasn't going to finish the marathons. So even with his sore feet, Chad said, nope, I'm going to finish.
So, Dayne, what was the most difficult day of the challenge? One day that really sticks out for you. I know there were a whole bunch of things. You were hit by a car, attacked by a dog. Yeah. There was a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
But what was the one day where you actually turned, like that night you went to bed and you were like, this is just too much?
Yeah, sure. I think there's too many to put it down to one. I think, as Chad said, day 36, I was hit by a car. I was still running, facing the cars, and it was a BMW. And he was trying to overtake somebody, and he hit me in the ribs, and I spinned, and I fell down, and I stood up, and I'm like, what just happened to me? And I felt my ribs were in pain. And I remember messaging my wife and Chad afterwards. I'm like, I can't believe it, bro. I got hit by a car today. I was fine. But
and then from there, Dayne suddenly grew this massive passion for trail running. He doesn't want to run on the road anymore.
So, I think the next day 37 onwards, I was just doing trail running. I'm like, nope, I don't like it at all. Yeah, it was just horrible. And it was such a gloomy day, because I remember running that particular day, the car fumes, and some dude ordered an Uber, and the Uber stopped here and his gate was here, and he was upset that the Uber didn't come to his gate. I'm like, at 6:00 in the morning, people are already moaning. Like, it was just, I think that was probably one of my worst days. Let's just put it down to that one. Yeah, it wasn't a great one.
Just give some context on the dog attack as well, because that's a funny
Yeah,
story.
that was ridiculous. I can't believe it. So I was running in my community on a Sunday afternoon around 4:00, struggled to run early in the day. I tried to do my runs early in the morning. And as I ran past this house, this white pit bull comes, and it kind of looked happy, but looked angry at the same time. So I don't know. And it starts biting my ankle, like just nibbling my ankle. So the owners then, I'm freaking out. Like, I'm just screaming, hey, the word hey, about 10 times as loud as I can. There's a security guard behind me at Marion College, and he just locks himself in the security room. I'm like, thanks, dude. Just leave me here out to dry.
Oh, what would happen if someone broke into Marion College?
Yeah, no, he'd lock himself into the security thing. And I'm like, and then I'm asking the owner to come and help me. She locks herself in her own car, so she's scared of her own dog. Eventually she gets out. She finds a stick to chase the dog away from me. And then I told her that she's absolutely crazy to have a dog that she's scared of. Like, why would you own a dog like that? And we had a big argument on the road, and yeah, I was freaked out for the rest of the run.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then also from that day, we were running at Taba. A lot of happened at Taba. And Dave's like, oh, I'm running with this now. And he whooped out pepper spray.
Yeah.
Carrying weaponry.
Yeah.
So that was obviously the most challenging day, or some of them.
Some of it, yeah.
What was the most memorable day of this challenge?
I think day 100 for me was like super cool. It was such a special day. We had so many people that were part of our journey that came through to support us. One of my favorite songs was playing that day. Like, my wife played it as we ran in. We ran with special people, just, reminiscing about every other day that we ran as well. So I think day 100 was for me. And I know it sounds cliche, but it really was. When you get to that point and you're like, I've actually done this. I remember having breakfast with Chad, thinking in my head, like, I don't know if I can do this.
And sorry, I have to stop you there, because this is something I actually wanted to ask you. When you were preparing for this 1,000 Beyond challenge, and I want you to be honest now, because now you've done it.
Yes,
so
yeah.
Whether you say yes or no, it just your answer is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Did you think you were actually going to make sure of your words?
Yeah, I've got a German wife, and if you know Germans, like, if you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. So she made sure that I was going to do it. But I knew you can't say yes to something like this and then have so much accountability behind you, because that was a big thing, is you've got to make sure that people hold you accountable and
I
not do it.
remember when you took me for breakfast, you said, what's the one tip you have? And I said, tell people you're going to do it.
Correct.
Because sometimes we have these massive goals that we want to achieve, but we tell no one because we're scared. And this is what it comes down to. We're scared we're not going to make sure of our words.
Yeah.
But if you tell people, you almost have that accountability created.
Yeah.
And you obviously told people and you made posts about it, and then you made sure of your words. So
yeah, I don't think you can't do something this big and not finish. Like, whether you walk it, you crawl it. The one day I did 2 kilometers in crutches, like 2 Ks around a block. I did it in crutches when my leg was still sore. Like, you will do anything to finish, because if you're doing it for the Lord as well, like, He's the one holding you accountable, not man. And that's what makes it so, special.
And I remember when you finished, when you got injured on day 4, whatever, you phoned me that night and you're like, Chad, I don't care if you have to push me in a wheelchair.
Yes.
I will finish the challenge. And that's when I knew, because that morning when you told me the severity of your injury, I was like, this is scary, especially so early on. But when you told me that night, I kind of went to bed and I actually said to my mom, Dayne's going to do this.
Yeah.
He's going to find a way to do this.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So Dayne, something I asked Matt last episode, and it's something I do emphasize, and I want to try emphasize to all my guests that come on, is the importance of balance. I feel like to be your best self, you have to have balance. Like I said, you decided to go do this challenge, and your daughter was just born. And for those that don't know, you work multiple jobs. You're a very, very busy man. How on earth did you find balance? Because it's not just the running. People think it's just the running.
Yeah.
The running on most days is the easy part. It's the posting. It's the stretching. It's the thinking about where am I going to run tomorrow. It's planning events for the run. There's so much that goes into these projects like 1,000 Beyond. So how did you find balance and still maintain being a fantastic father? And
I think I probably didn't maintain being a fantastic father. I think you dropped the ball as a husband, as a father, as a worker with my companies. at some point. But I remember my biblical studies lecturer, I studied theology, and he said this to me. The one day I got to college and I was frustrated, and I said to him, Dr. Dave, I can't get my life balanced, and then I wasn't even married and I didn't have children, and I don't even know why I said that. It was the dumbest thing to say, and he laughed at me, and I said, Dr. Dave, why are you laughing at me? And he says, the problem that we have as human beings is we want to live these balanced lives, and it's never going to happen. He said, you got to think of your life as these two Indian spice weighing scales. Those old school scales. If you put more spice on, it gets heavier this side. That's kind of how we think of our lives, having these spice weighing scales, but that's not how the universe works, and that's not how God works. You got to think of your life not only having two of those, but 1,000 of those that you need to balance. So instead of asking God for balance in your life, rather ask Him for rhythm and developing a good rhythm. And ever since I've heard that statement, and ever since He told me that, that's what I kind of pray for, is I say, Lord, I'm not going to balance my day. I'm going to let somebody down, but help me to develop a good rhythm in my day. And so that's been very helpful, is try and develop these good rhythms that help you get through your day.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible wisdom. So something we spoke about a lot on the run is how running is actually a metaphor for life.
Yeah.
There's so much context within running that can be applicable to our daily lives.
Yeah.
So as someone who's been tossed into the deep end of running, you haven't had a slow journey to running by any means.
Yeah.
What does running mean to you, and what has running taught you?
For me, and it's going to sound so silly, it's going to be different for everybody, but for me, running's taught me to pray more. Because I found, like, through that, so for every uphill, there's a downhill, and that's a metaphor for life.
I know we said that a lot, especially running at Taba. We're like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's so true. Like when you hit those ups and you're running at a terrible pace, like my pace is really bad. Even now, my pace isn't great. Like when you're running at a slow pace, you know that a down is coming, and I love the downs. So I would run the downs and walk the ups. Eventually, that's where I got. And so I learned while I was walking the ups just to pray through the ups and walk and run through the downs. And that's a metaphor for life as well. Like you're going to have those ups that you just need to pray through, and then the downs, you can run through them. So, yeah.
Would you encourage others to run?
No, you're asking the wrong person. Oh my gosh. I'd encourage others to be active. Yeah. If running is what you enjoy doing, don't let someone force you to do something that you don't want to do necessarily. But anybody can run. Like God has designed us in such a way that we can run, but you got to enjoy it as well. So if you love cycling for argument's sake and you're forcing yourself to run, then you're just punishing yourself. So, but I'd encourage you to be active. Like without a doubt, the one thing that people don't know as well is that when you did your 42 Ks, that's something else that's not even human, but even 10 Ks a day, you're releasing so many endorphins. And so endorphins are great, but you get something called endorphin fatigue because you're releasing endorphins every single day. So, having experienced that feeling during the run, you feel terrible, but after the run, you feel really great. So if you're running 10 Ks a day every day, no, I don't encourage you to do that because then you don't have many endorphins to release. But if you're running, it's really good for you. So be active.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes about running is that, and I know I've told you this before, is that running is like the opposite of drugs, because when you take drugs, in the moment it feels awesome, but afterwards you feel terrible. Running, you feel terrible in the moment, but afterwards you feel amazing. And I feel like to be your best self, you need to find things in life that offer you that in the moment it sucks, but the reward is overcoming it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's what running has taught me. How much of this challenge, and this is something that everyone says to me, they're like, how did your body get through it? And I'm a firm believer in that your mind controls your body. Your mind is your vessel. And how much of this challenge would you say, let's say I gave you a percentage.
Yeah.
How much of it was a physical challenge? Because I know it was a physical challenge. I know 100%. You can't say 0% because I know it was a physical challenge.
Yeah.
But how much of it was mental? How much? I know you ran in the mornings. And I know waking up in the mornings is not easy.
Especially for Chad. Like he's not a morning.
We're recording this at 9:30. It was supposed to be 9, but I woke up late.
He's not a morning person and he's so grumpy. Like, and this is your podcast, so people need to know. Like, And then you got to give him like 3Ks, like run around 3K. If it's an early morning run, don't talk to him for about 3Ks. After 3,
It's true.
You'll start kind of mumbling a few words. Yeah.
So how much of this challenge was mental and how much was physical?
I would definitely say 90-10, like 10% physical.
90-10, eh?
For sure, yeah, absolutely. Like the discipline, as Chad said, I recorded a devotion every day. You upload an update of your run. So the running is a massive part of it, but there's so much else that you're constantly thinking about and mentally got to prepare yourself for. And then when you're done running, it's not just say, okay, I've done my run today, I can go chill. You're actually preparing for the next day and stretching, creams, ice baths. It's incredibly mental. I think if you're mentally strong, you can get through absolutely anything.
Yeah, 100%. And another thing when it comes to these challenges, like you tend to only realize the success of what you're doing at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you obviously spoke about how you were posting every day, right? And what I loved about your posts every day was that you tied it to a devotional message. So there were obviously 100 messages that you had. Out of those 100, which Bible verse and which devotional do you think encapsulates the 100 days the best?
Sure, there were so many, and I think it was quite funny because towards the end I was saying, "Have I done a devotion on this verse before?" And I was, even scared to do devotion. But one was 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 10, and it says, "For when I am weak, then I'm strong," and that's definitely sums up the 100 days for me in such a big way because when we're at our weakest, God's strength doesn't fail, and it doesn't deter in any way. So that for me, I remember the one day I'd gone on my run, I'd prepared, I was about 7Ks in, and I said, sheesh, I know that I'd read a passage, but I had to ask my wife to go and find my Bible to see what I'd read because I completely forgot. And on the phone, she was reading the passage to me over and over so I could memorize it and share it as a devotion. And this was it. And it was such a special verse. For when I'm weak, then I'm strong. Because when we're at our weakest, God is strong. Yeah.
Cool. And then you're obviously done with the running now for the 100 days, but will running be a constant in your life after 1,000 beyond?
I think so. I think, my knees are still very sore. So I haven't gone for a run yet. I've started cycling, which has been great. So I'm hoping, I think I just need to get back on the road once, see how I feel. And, if you stop with your crazy challenges, then maybe. But I think you want to do some cool things still. So let's see. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So then obviously, before you came here, we saw that we've had our article released in Alberton Record, and we did mention what our next crazy goal is.
Yes, in Alberton Record. Yeah.
Yes.
that was crazy on your part. You were the one who insisted we do that. So let's
me
see.
and Dayne were like discussing what should we do next, how should we, because we've fallen short of our financial goal with 1,000 beyond, and we're trying to find ways to make up that, to bridge that gap.
Correct. Yeah.
So we're looking for projects to do, and we were discussing, and we were like, well, maybe we should do this, maybe we should do that. And then when we finished, the Alberton Record came, and I was like, no, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And I could feel Dayne nudge me, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But just maybe give some context into what it is that we are looking to do.
We're thinking about it. So let's just say it's like 75% confirmed, but it's accountability. So our whole heart would be that we run 100 kilometers in a day. That being that Chad does 50 kilometers and I do 50 kilometers on the same day. We'll try and run together. He's a much, much better runner than I am. So I'll slow him down pace-wise. But that would kind of probably be our goals, to run 50 kilometers in a day each, which would come up to, And then there we would need to try and raise 50,000 Rand on the day as well.
So we're obviously looking for people to donate.
Correct.
Per kilometer. And that's how, for those wondering, that's how we were able to raise close to 250,000 Rand for Carl last year. Is like we had pretty much no money raised. Come day 70, we had like 30,000 Rand or something like that, which is nothing. I'm obviously very grateful for those who donated, but towards the end, we made it so much more because people were generous and they were donating per kilometer that I ran in the last 30 days. So thank you to those people.
Yeah.
So that concludes all our questions, but I tend to end off every episode, well, that's my goal at least, with 5 questions. And I think this is like, so the reason why I ask these 5 questions is because they're very closely linked to what motivates you as a person and your mentality around situations or whatever. And the first one is, what has been your biggest accomplishment so far in your whole life, and why? Why was it so big?
Yeah, so my biggest accomplishment so far is my family. Um, I think a lot of people that don't have children yet often hear from parents to say that their child is the biggest blessing, and then you meet their child and they're running around and throwing all the furniture upside down, and it's definitely the best to see this human being that God has kind of put together in your wife's stomach come out, and you love them so much, and you see them grow. Uh, I can't really call it an accomplishment, but it feels like an accomplishment because they're the reason I live. Besides Jesus, like that's the reason I'm on this planet is for them. So that for me is to have three girls. It's hard, but to have three little girls and having this family is definitely such an accomplishment for sure.
So that's your biggest accomplishment, as we said. What has been your lowest moment? Let's look at the antithesis of this. What has been your lowest moment, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, so I think I took up a role in a different country, again, from my theological background. And going into that role already, I think I was quite prideful and my mind wasn't right and not ready for the role. And God closed that door. He clearly closed that door, but we forced it open again. And we were there for 3 years, and that was probably the hardest 3 years of my life. And so I think learning from it is that God doesn't need us. God doesn't need us, but He does use us, and it's a privilege to be used by God.
So true. So in terms of advice, I was saying to Tristan, it was actually my brother John yesterday. I said, advice is a common commodity because it's free, and most things in life that are free are not long lasting.
Yes.
But what in your mind has been the best piece of advice you've ever received, and who told it to you?
Yeah, I'll never forget. It was by a very wealthy friend of mine who just lived incredibly humbly. Didn't drive a nice car, didn't have lots of clothes, often wear the same thing, lived in a very minimalistic house. And he said, and it's actually my WhatsApp, kind of part of my profile, but it's live simply so that other people can simply live. Live simply so that other people can simply live. It's such a good saying, and it's so true. We don't need all the bells and whistles. We just need to live simply so that other people can simply live. Yeah.
Awesome. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, what has been the worst piece of advice someone's ever given you, and
Yeah.
why?
Yeah, I think growing up, I always wanted to be a marine biologist. That was my goal. I love scuba diving. I love the ocean. I love aquatic life. I've got a huge fish tank at home and a fish pond outside, and I love it. And I remember so many people discouraging me, saying, "Oh, your maths marks aren't good enough. Your science marks aren't good enough." And that is bad because words, they say sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never harm you. It's the biggest lie that's ever been told in the world today. If people discourage you from your dreams, it's got a lasting effect on you. And I didn't pursue that because of what people had said to me, which was silly. I should have pursued that because that was something that I'm very deeply passionate about. And so, yeah, I think the worst piece of advice is somebody telling me you can't do something because with God, all things are possible. And that's silly. No one has a right to say that to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also what you said is like sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never harm me. I think that's also such a lie because words are a very powerful weapon in a
Correct.
good and a bad way.
Correct,
so we have
yeah.
to be very careful about what we say.
True, yeah.
And that's honestly like why one of the big motivators why I started this podcast, because I think just conversing with people and getting to know people on a deeper level and to realize we're actually all human.
Yeah.
We might have accomplished these crazy things and whatever, but at the end of the day, we're all the same, and it's just a mentality and a mindset that allows us to achieve these things.
True, yeah.
So the last question, and this is going to end off our interview. So I'm going to ask you to please look into that camera and give it to us. What advice do you wish to give to others?
So the advice that I would definitely give to you is 3 words, and it's a slogan or a slogan for one of the biggest brands that many of us wear today. And it's 3 words, just do it. It's Nike's slogan. But if you have a goal in mind, if you have something massive that you want to do for God, if you have something that you'd like to accomplish or be one day, just do it. Don't let anybody prevent you from doing it. Don't let these voices that are discouraging you from doing it have any impact on your life. Just do it. Go ahead, be crazy, do good big things for God, and you'll see how God will honor you for doing that as well.
That's so cool. And I think a lot of people in today's world suffer from analysis paralysis, where they have this idea, they know this is what they are meant to do with their life.
Yeah.
But they overthink and they're like, yo, but what if this happens? And what if that happens? And what if that happens? And by the time they've realized all these things that could happen, that have not yet happened, they're so discouraged that they don't do anything.
Correct.
And I think it's a very common mentality in today's world. Dayne, that concludes our interview. So I was actually talking to Tristan the other day, and he said that the biggest thing we need to fix is how we finished the last interview, right?
Yeah.
And I totally agree with that. And I've been thinking about it a little bit, and the one thing I want to do, and I'm going to spring this on you, so
sure, go for it.
I want us to end this episode in prayer.
Sure, that will be great.
So would you be willing to pray for us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, Lord, I just thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with Chad. And I pray, Lord Jesus, that these podcasts will, not only be an opportunity for people to share their stories, but an opportunity for people to see how good you are in our lives and how much you do for us. And so I pray for a blessing over the Faithful Chad podcast. I pray that everybody that comes here will be blessed and indeed be a blessing as well. And I thank you so much, Lord, for this opportunity. Please keep us healthy and safe, Lord. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Dayne. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Chad.
Sweet.
I feel alive. I know inside that you would take it all